Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about graphical representation. Graphical representation. So what is graphical representation? Graphical representation is a way of analyzing numerical data. It displays the relationships between data, ideas, information and concepts in a diagram. It is easy to understand and is one of the most important learning strategies. Likewise, it always depends on the type of information in a particular domain. There are different types of graphical representations. Some of them are as follows. Line graph. Line graph or linear graph is used to display continuous data and is useful for predicting future events over time. Bar graph. Bar graph is used to display a range of data and it compares data using solid bars to represent quantities. Histogram. Graph that uses bars to represent the frequency of numerical data arranged in intervals. Since all intervals are equal and continuous, all bars have the same width. Line plot. This shows the frequency of the data on a given number line. The X is placed above a number line each time that data appears again. Frequency table. The table shows the number of pieces of data that have arrived within a given interval. Circle graph, also known as a pie chart. It shows the relationships of parts of a whole. The circle is considered with 100% and the occupied categories are indicated with that specific percentage like 15%, 56%, etc. Stem and leaf plot. In stem and leaf plot, the data is arranged from the least value to maximum value. The digit with the lowest place value from the leaves and the next place value digit from the stem. Box and whisker plot. Plot diagram summarizes data by dividing it into 4 parts. Boxes and whiskers show the range, dispersion and mean of the data. These are the diagrams of types of graphical representation. General rules for graphical representation of data. There are certain rules for effectively presenting information in a graphical representation. Appropriate title. Make sure the graph indicating the topic of the presentation is given an appropriate title. Measurement unit. Mention the unit of measurement in the graph. Then appropriate scale. Choose an appropriate scale to represent the data accurately. Index. Index the appropriate colors, shades, lines, designs in the graph for better understanding. Then data sources. Include sources of information wherever necessary at the bottom of the graph. Keep it simple. Draw a graph in a simple way that everyone can understand. Neat. Choose the right size, fonts, color, etc. in such a way that the graph is visual aid to the presentation of information. Graphical representation in mathematics. In mathematics, a graph is defined as a chart with statistical data represented as curves or as lines drawn at a coordinate point plotted on its surface. It helps in studying the relationships between two variables where it helps to measure the change in variable amount with respect to other variables within a given time interval. It helps to study series distribution and frequency distribution for a given problem. There are two types of graphs to represent information visually. Time series graph, example line graph, then frequency distribution graph, example frequency polygon graph. Principles of graphical representation. Algebraic principles apply to all kinds of graphical representation of data. In graphs, it is represented using two lines called coordinate axes. The horizontal axis is represented as the x-axis and the vertical axis as the y-axis. The point at which two lines intersect is called the origin point 0. Consider the x-axis. The distance from the origin to the right will take a positive value, and the distance from the origin to the left will take a negative value. Similarly, for the y-axis, points above the origin will take a positive value, and the points below the origin will have a negative value. Generally, the frequency distribution is represented in four ways, namely histogram, smooth frequency graph, pie diagram, cumulative frequency graph, then last one is frequency polygon. Properties of using graphs. Some advantages of using graphs are as follows. The graph can be easily understood by everyone without any prior knowledge. Then it saves time. This allows us to relate and compare data for different time periods. It is used in statistics to determine the mean, median, mode for various data, as well as interpolation and extrapolation of data. Example of frequency polygon graph. The following steps are to be followed to find the frequency distribution of a frequency polygon and is represented in a graphical manner. Find the frequency distribution and find the midpoint of each class interval. Denote the midpoint along with the x-axis and the frequencies along with the y-axis. Plot the corresponding points of frequency at each midpoint. Join these points in sequence using lines. Then last one is to complete the polygon, immediately connect the point at each end to the lower or upper square marks on the x-axis.